Hi, my name is Amy Heller. I'm the Benefits Program Manager in the Systems Navigation Department at Developmental Pathways. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Medicaid and Social Security and the application process for both. Moving into Medicaid, why? Why do you need to apply for Medicaid? If an individual would like to have a Medicaid waiver, such as CES, SLS, DD, etc., they need to have Medicaid in place. Medicaid is what's going to pay for those optional waiver services that are created through the service plan. So you need to apply for Medicaid and qualify for long-term care Medicaid. We have some resources available on our DP website under resources and tools or helpful tools. We have this double-sided document called Applying for and Maintaining Long-Term Care Medicaid. We also have a Medicaid application guide for the full Medicaid process that you can get from the website. You can also ask your case manager or coordinator for a copy. So getting started, when to apply for Medicaid? We get this question a lot. You can apply at any time. You don't have to wait until the individual is 18. Just keep in mind that Medicaid is going to ask a lot of questions about the household income, assets, and resources, especially if the person is over the age of 18 and are declared as a dependent on parent taxes. We cannot advise as to whether or not you should keep it that way with taxes. That is totally a personal decision, but it can impact the person's ability to get Medicaid. It will not impact their ability to get long-term care Medicaid, the waiver Medicaid. Parent income is waived for that. All right. So there are different application options. You can go through an application assistance site to get help. You can go through an eligibility application partner. You can fill out a paper application and submit that directly to your local Department of Human Services. You could also fill it out and submit it to your eligibility application partner. You can apply for Medicaid on the Colorado Peak site. We do suggest you keep a copy of everything. We don't necessarily recommend applying for Medicaid on the Peak site. There are some limitations, and one of the big ones is that you can't fill out a Medicaid disability application on the Peak site. But we don't want to discourage you from using the Peak site because it really is a fantastic resource. There's also an app for your phone where you can manage your Medicaid once you have it. You can update your address and other contact information. You can complete a Medicaid renewal on there. So we do suggest Peak in general as a website, just not for the application. When we talk about an eligibility application partner, we're referring to Colorado Access AMES, A-M-E-S. It stands for Access Medical Enrollment Services. AMES is highly recommended by us to help people apply for Medicaid. They can literally go question by question, page by page with you. They do ask that people fill out as much of the application as possible prior to a scheduled meeting, but they are able to answer lots of questions about the applications and guide you along. They're a wonderful, wonderful resource. As I mentioned before, Colorado Peak does have some limitations. If you do decide to apply on Peak, you'll be asked if the person you're applying for needs help with activities of daily living. Make sure you check yes. That will prompt the system to send what's called a Medicaid disability application for you to fill out if the person is not receiving Social Security benefits. There are different types of Medicaid. In fact, there are over 30 different kinds of Medicaid, but the ones we see most often are MAGI, Modified Adjusted Gross Income. It is income-based. Long-term care Medicaid, that's waiver Medicaid, and then Help First Colorado Buy-in Medicaid program. This is for working adults with a disability or children with a disability, and it allows people to buy in to Medicaid if they don't qualify in any other way. I will say that the monthly fee was waived during the public health emergency and will not be collected up to 14 months from the time that the health emergency ends. And whoever you use to apply for Medicaid can explain a little bit more about each of those as needed. So long-term care Medicaid has its own set of requirements outside of, say, Magi Medicaid or buy-in. There are strict financial requirements. You can't have more than $2,000 in all assets combined. That includes accounts that an individual has as a joint account with a parent. And so you want to start thinking about how to keep that money. You can't just transfer it out to another account. Medicaid does look back 5 years, so they will catch that and they will ask a lot of questions. And so best to ask Medicaid for advice if you do have resources over 2,000 about some suggestions of what to do with it. And we'll be talking a little bit about that later in this presentation as well. And then the income limit is 3 times the current maximum SSI for that year. So if you do a quick Google search, you can put in that you want to know what the current SSI is for the current year. You will also find it in the in DP's long-term care Medicaid and SSA guide. It's a really long comprehensive guide. You can find that on our website. And each year that is updated with the current SSI information. Working adults may have a different financial requirement because most working adults can enroll onto both buy-in and the waiver, and so they would go by the buy-in requirements. The other requirement is a disability determination, and so it is according to what Social Security defines as a disability, and there are 2 options for getting this. One is to apply for Social Security, and to be awarded Social Security. The other is to fill out a Medicaid disability application. And then the functional assessment needs to be done. This will be done with our enrollment team at DP. And it's also known as a level of care 100.2 assessment. We take a document from that assessment and give it to Medicaid to show the person is going onto a waiver. And that's how that process happens. We understand that some of the language is the same. So when you go through the intake process, they also do a disability determination. That disability determination is according to what the state says is a disability, and is a very different process. This is according to what Social Security says is a disability. All right. So as I said, different requirements for long-term care Medicaid, got that $2,000 limit, and then might be different for working adults. More information about buy-in. You can ask your case manager for a copy of the Health First Colorado Buy-in Medicaid with Waivers Guide. We at DP, or I should say I at DP, love to make guides. And so we have a guide for lots of different things. And that guide has a lot more information about buy-in with the waiver. So thinking ahead, we highly suggest thinking ahead, not knowing when someone might be given money in the future, come into it, whether it's a family member passes away and leaves them money, or perhaps they get back pay from Social Security. We really want to encourage you to look ahead and get something in place. So an individual is not at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage at the time when honestly they need it the most. So say a parent passes away and they suddenly come into money as a result and are then at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage when they need it, when they desperately need it, right? So you can look into an ABLE account, a pooled trust, or a special needs trust. There are also 529 college savings accounts. Couple things, 529 college savings account will become a countable resource. It will count towards that $2,000 at the point that the person turns 18. It may also count for some people under 18, depending on what kind of a 529 college savings account you have. So you'll need to discuss that with Medicaid when you apply for Medicaid to figure out if it's a countable resource or not. When someone turns 18, you can transfer that money into an ABLE account to make sure that it's not a countable resource. And there is this great chart that compares the ABLE account, trust account, and pool trust. It's very long, but it has really valuable information, and I highly encourage you to take a look at that. All right, so I mentioned before that there are various options, or so there are two options, I should say, for getting that disability determination from using the Social Security definition. Two big differences between the Medicaid disability route and the Social Security application is, number one, going the Medicaid disability route might be faster than applying for Social Security. So if you're wanting to get the person approved for waiver services more quickly, then disability application is going to be a good route for you. And then apply for Social Security when you're ready to. The other difference is that the Medicaid disability application does not come with a monetary benefit, but the Social Security application does. So things to consider when deciding which direction you want to go in. And honestly, you can apply for both at the same time. You can fill out a Medicaid and a disability application and apply for Social Security. So the Social Security application and the disability application look very similar, ask a lot of the same questions. And so you could also think of applying for the Medicaid disability application first as a test run, right? And then take all of that information and put it in your Social Security application. So some general tips: complete the application, submit a completed application. Make sure that you're keeping your eyes out for any mail from Medicaid and on the Social Security side as well. They are sometimes asking for more information, and you need to be responsive to their requests. If you don't understand what they're asking or what they're saying, we suggest you call Medicaid directly with your questions. The application must be signed, and it needs to be signed by the correct person. And so if you are an adult who is applying for Medicaid and you're your own legal guardian, then you will need to sign it. If you have a parent that or somebody else who is a court-appointed legal guardian, then they can sign the application. And legal guardianship paperwork should be submitted with the application. The Medicaid disability application is a little unusual in that it will only accept what's called a wet signature. And that means that you need to print it out and sign with a pen, blue or black ink, and submit that with the application. And a couple of other tips and tricks here. There is a guide for applying for Medicaid with many other tips and tricks, and we encourage you to read through that. Medicaid renewals happen every year, and it's very specific with how Medicaid wants this filled out. Number one, you need to sign it and date it, and it needs to be signed in the correct place and page of the renewal packet. It's a chance to report changes that you haven't already reported throughout the year. It should arrive, the packet should arrive about 2 months ahead of when it's due. It should be on your Colorado Peak account a little bit earlier than you'll get it in the mail. And you will also need to be asked to submit what's called verifications. And those are financial documents such as bank statements, pay stubs, etc., for the individual who is on long-term care Medicaid. And then if you get a denial, we strongly encourage you to call Medicaid, ask them questions about the denial, ask what they need from you so you can get long-term care Medicaid back in place without a lapse. This process was previously called a Medicaid redetermination, and you will see that language used interchangeably on the Peak site. We have a very robust section in our long-term care Medicaid and SSA guide about renewals. So we encourage you to review that section when you're working on your renewal. You can also find your renewal month on the Colorado Peak site, which is very exciting. So you can be on the lookout for the mail. You'll know when it's coming. Other helpful links for Medicaid, Disability Benefits 101 is a fairly new site. It came about a couple of years ago. It has fabulous information. When you first look at it, it looks like it's really geared towards someone who wants to work or is working, but honestly, it has a lot of great information for everyone. I especially appreciate their section about Social Security, how they define SSI and SSDI. I feel like it's an excellent explanation of what those programs are. The link for Colorado Peak is there. You can also download an app to your phone. We have a link on here for resources for a list of county offices for Medicaid. And then if you go to the bottom, you'll see the information for AIMS, the eligibility application partner that I mentioned previously, who can help people to apply for Medicaid. They can also help people in answering questions about a Medicaid renewal. So if you try to call the county, you have trouble getting through, you can call AIMS and they should be able to answer some questions for you as well. So really fabulous resource all around. Hi, I'm popping in for some updates. First of all, we have this new webpage on our DP's website called Applying for and Maintaining Medicaid. You can find the link from our resources tools section, and it has information on it if you are helping someone to apply or if you are trying to apply for yourself. Talks about which Medicaid applications might be needed, where you can go for application support, some information about applying for Social Security, some frequently asked questions, and then this handy dandy chart that helps you to figure out which applications you might need to complete. Of course, we want you to get expert opinions or expert information from Medicaid, but we're giving you some information here so you can at least get started with the process. And then earlier in the presentation, it was discussed or noted that you need to have a disability determination from the Social Security Administration. I do want to make sure that you all know that if you are a non-working adult, so an adult that's not working, and you're over the age of 65, you do not need to complete that extra disability determination. And keep in mind, this disability determination is not the same as the one that our intake team does. That is completely separate. This is the disability determination through the Social Security Administration, either by applying for Social Security or by filling out a Medicaid disability app. Hope that's helpful, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. All right, we're switching over to the Social Security side. There are two parts to a Social Security application, the disability report and the SSI application. Generally, you can fill out both online. The only exception to that I know of is someone who previously got SSI, it ended, and now they're applying again for the benefits. Those people cannot apply on the Social Security website. You will need to apply by making an appointment with Social Security or going in and waiting your turn to get help. All right. So moving on to when to apply for Social Security. Similar to the Medicaid side, you can apply anytime you want. They will, and when the person is under 18, they will ask the family lots of questions about their own financial information to determine if as a family they qualify for SSI. So it's really up to you. And you can also look on the Social Security website. I believe there's a link on there to kind of put in some initial information for the system to tell you whether or not they think you might qualify. If the person is 18 or turns 18 and they're already getting SSI because they've been getting it through the family, you don't have to reapply. You don't have to go online and reapply. Social Security should send a packet to the person prior to their 19th birthday to fill out, which is kind of like a reapplication to apply as an adult. If the person has not received this within like maybe a couple months of their 19th birthday, I do encourage you to call Social Security and ask, you know, when that packet might be arriving, that you want to make sure this person has continuous SSI once they turn 19. And then for someone who turns 18, Social Security doesn't consider the person 18 until they have been 18 for a full month. And so it's not recommended that you go immediately on their 18th birthday on the Social Security website and apply, because they won't be considered an adult yet. And so, for example, if the person's birthday is in May, you will apply in June. There is a guide to applying for Social Security that goes through some other scenarios that would be really helpful, that are maybe outside of the ones you see here. So there are a couple different ways to apply for Social Security. You can schedule an in-person interview at the Social Security office. You can schedule a phone interview. You can call either the local office number or the main 800 Social Security number, or you can apply online. And just remember what I said before about a person who previously had SSI that won't be able to apply online. We do recommend applying online for a couple of different reasons. First of all, it can be faster. You may not be able to get an appointment for a while. Number two, you can start and stop the application at any time. Just make sure you get that reentry number that it gives you and keep that in a safe place. So you can start, go gather more information and come back and continue to fill it out. So that's definitely the reason why we recommend that. If you do go with an in-person or a phone interview, I recommend doing some prep and having a lot of the information written down. You don't actually hand deliver a paper application to Social Security. What they do when you are meeting with someone is they'll gather the information from you and type it up while you're sitting there talking. And so you are definitely, it's recommended that you have a lot of preparation done first, because that 90 minutes can go really fast and they will cut you off at that 90-minute mark. So I feel like there are 4 steps to really think about when you are applying for Social Security. One is to prepare and gather documents. Number 2 is, and that preparation is, writing down all the employers a person has had, addresses, Social Security number, disability information, all of that kind of stuff. So it's in front of you as you're applying. The other next step is to actually apply. So again, deciding how you want to apply and when. And then follow up. Follow up is super important. So what happens once you apply for Social Security is Social Security will review the financial piece. And then if you meet that, they will forward the application to DDS, Disability Determination Services. They are contracted by Social Security to review the disability portion of a Social Security application. The case is assigned to someone called a disability examiner, and they send a letter to you with that disability examiner's name and phone number. We strongly encourage you to call that person when you get the letter and to ask them if there are any records you can send to them. So you can either submit supporting documents with your application, or you can submit them later on in the process. We don't feel like you need to hold up actually applying for Social Security until you have supporting documents ready. But we do feel like it's important to have something to submit at some point to Social Security. You will be listing out medical providers, therapists, school personnel in the application, and Social Security will automatically reach out to those people and entities for supporting information. But it's nice to submit your own documents in case they have trouble collecting that from those resources. And I think the best time to submit that documentation is directly to the disability examiner once they're assigned to the case. Social Security will only forward the first 20 pages of supporting documents that you give to them. And so if you give them 40 pages of supporting documents, that's half that won't make it to the disability examiner. So super important to really make that connection with the disability examiner and work closely with them to make sure they get what they need. And then the last piece, if you're approved, is getting an account set up for an electronic deposit. And that can be electronically, excuse me, deposited into a bank account, a RedPayE account, or onto a credit card that Social Security has that you can get through them. It's called the Direct Express account. It is a myth that people are denied Social Security the first time around every time, but there are a lot of places for pitfalls in the process. So strongly recommend that you use the guide that's available on the DP website, read over the tips and tricks, and use that while you're applying. And give us feedback if it was helpful, if it wasn't helpful, that kind of thing. We'd love to hear. Other resources available on the DP website is similar to the Medicaid side, this applying for and maintaining Social Security benefits. The guide to applying for Social Security is more comprehensive and is available on the website, or you can ask your case manager or coordinator for a copy. We also have a guide if you are denied, all about the denial and appeal process for that. So if you'd like to watch a much longer video on the Social Security and Medicaid application process, you're welcome to go to this YouTube channel. It's through the ARC of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Elbert. I did this presentation a few years ago for their Step Up program. And some of the information may be a little outdated, but the information in this presentation should make up for that. I also highly recommend the Step Up program through the ARC. It is great for individuals going through the transition time. They have, I think, 6 different courses that they offer, and it's really fantastic. And then Easter Seals has a program called the Disability Benefit Services Department, which they offer an amazing webinar series about the different parts of applying for Social Security. So some examples of their webinar topics are the SSA disability programs and process, the medical eligibility criteria, the SSA work history report. So really great information about all the different forms that you're going to be filling out and the different applications. So highly recommend them. There is a cost for the webinar. I think it's pretty reasonable, but definitely something you can look into and discuss with them. And then, as I mentioned before, the Disability Benefits 101 site has great information about Social Security and as well as Medicaid. So last tidbit of information, repeating because it's really that important. Make sure the right person signs the applications. Make sure you date the applications. Make sure they're a complete application. And make sure that all of the releases that go with each application are also filled out and signed. We see denials based just purely on that. And so just double checking your work, I think, goes a long way. And then making sure your packet is complete and all the pages are in order. That's it. I know both processes of applying for Medicaid and Social Security can be pretty scary and overwhelming. We really hope that the guides that we have available can help to make them feel like more manageable for you. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.